I find that it's a little bit hard to know from where you came from and why you are what you are. A few years ago, I went to go see a woman in Nashville who put me in touch with my past self. She, with the help of her spiritual guides, gave me an opportunity to talk with my own guides and allowed them to offer advice on challenges, on issues that I was facing at the moment, and to learn a little bit about my past self. It turns out I used to be a frog. No, just kidding. This would make this call to worship much shorter, should that be the case. We found my spirit living in Spain at the time that we kind of took a look-see. It was embodied by a Moorish soldier fighting in the Crusades. He was an archer who felt conflicted, himself being Moroccan and occupying a beautiful countryside in the Iberian Peninsula. He missed home, his family, and traditions, but still remained true to his responsibilities. It was like an hour-long conversation, and that's really all I remember as I gave the woman my money. I used to be a Moroccan archer. And like most things of this nature, you really take from it what you want. And do I believe I was actually channeling my true spirit who was flinging arrows conflicted with himself around a modest campfire in Granada? Yeah, well, no, I don't know. And in reality, I probably don't care if it was true or not. But what I found surprising in my quest to find more about my past was a discovery of these elements rooted in my current self. That either how I held myself in that moment, the energy that resonated in me, which this woman who I had never met before, picked up through her fine-tuned intuitive observations. Or maybe she Googled me. See, I was and still consider myself an archer. I have been an archer ever since I was 12, when a father figure taught me how to shoot a bow. Further, he taught me about proper form, technique about peep sights, knocking points, draw lengths, cock feathers, and field tips. I learned how to estimate distance and wind to plan an arrow's trajectory, and how to draw the bow with the least amount of movement and noise to avoid detection. On the surface, I guess it's just a lucky guess, right? But I allowed for some introspection, asking why. The simple act of shooting an arrow calls to me so much, even 500 years later. It's not just shooting an arrow. I have a fascination with the form, process, and the burden involved. It's only through repetition of this proper form does one not become just accurate, but precise. And that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. With feet balanced, elbows bent, hand relaxed, and shoulders relaxed, finger to lip, breathe. This attention to form plays out in my fascination of yoga, in cycling, and in baseball. I also find delight in this burden involved and how our burden can bring back this potential energy. And what I mean to say, this drawing back of the string, which is anywhere from 60 or 70 pounds, it allows your 400 grain arrow enough potential energy to reach 200 miles per hour and drop that arrow within a small circle at 30 yards. A few times in a row if you're good. This quest for the stability of an arrow's flight plays in ideas of parabolic curves and planar motion, Newton's laws. Our work, burden, and practice of form, creating this power and precision, it's awesome. I believe the fascination of these elements within me have made me what I am today. So where did this fascination come from? Maybe it's my Moorish past self. Maybe it's my grandfather who was an avid hunter, or my father who was a mathematician. I don't know from where it comes, But I have found that looking back at what elements have repeatedly excited me, where I find flow, and what keeps me rooted, has allowed me a little better connection to where in the future I aim to find peace, joy, and happiness. So I do hope that this time that you've all created for yourselves today, to be with your past, remembering from where you came from, can offer a grounding trajectory to a bright tomorrow. Come, let us listen. Here is where I found my voice and chose to be brave. Here is a place where I forgave someone against my better judgment, and I survived that. And unexpectedly, amazingly, I became wiser. Here's where I was once forgiven and ready for once in my life to receive forgiveness and to be transformed. And I survived that also. I lived to tell the tale. This is the place where I said no, more loudly than I thought that I could, and everybody stared. But I said no loudly anyway, because I knew it must be said. And those staring settled down into harmless, ineffective grumbling, and over me, they had no power anymore. Here's a time. And here's another. When I laid down my fear and walked right into it, right up to my neck, into that rolling water. Here is where cruelty taught me something. And here where I was first astonished by gratuitous compassion and knew it was a miracle, knew it for the miracle it was, the requirement it is. It was a trembling time. And here, much later, is where I returned the blessing, clumsily. It wasn't hard, but I was unaccustomed. It cycled around, and as best as I could, I sent it back out, passed the gift along. This circular motion around and around has no apparent end. Here's a place, a murky puddle where I have stumbled more than once and fallen. I don't know yet what to learn there. On this site, I was outraged, and the rage sustains me still. It clarifies my seeing. And here, where something caught me, a warm breeze in late winter, birdsong in late summer. Here's where I was told that something was wrong with my eyes, that I see the world strangely. And here's where I said, yes, I know. I walk in beauty. Here is where I begin to look with my own eyes and listen with my ears and sing with my own song, as shaky as it is. Here is where, if by surgeon's knife, my heart was opened up. And here and here and here and here. These are the landmarks of conversion.
Come now, all who are broken and cracked, come to the place where your shattered pieces are the raw materials of mosaic and kintsugi. Here you will find welcome among the armless dolls in cozy pilled sweaters, loved exactly as they are. Come now, all who are thirsty and burned, come to the place where cool waters and aloe soothe your bedraggled soul. Drink your fill and salve your skin, then fill your canteen and return once more to the struggle, knowing the well will remain unobstructed. Come now, all who long for the stars, come to the place where that vision of infinity is written upon the people's hearts. Hold it until you've memorized the way. Set your compass to point towards hope and begin your journey home. I first met the Reverend Linda Susan Ulrich, who wrote the words to our second reading, when I lived in Michigan, about 6 or so years ago. They served as the assistant minister at the First Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Ann Arbor. We were Michigan State fans. And as a young minister, I was always moved by her spirit, care, and commitment to those she served and for justice. Fumbling on to her words this morning for this service on remembering was a joy to remember those years of my life, those years in Michigan when Hattie and I got married and got our first dog. Those years when I served our Unitarian Universalist Association, the wider body, and a congregation in East Lansing. Those years when I met wonderful new colleagues like Linda Susan, who would have a meaningful and lasting impact on my impressionable young vision of ministry. As a side note, Linda Susan came to Michigan by way of St. Paul, Minnesota, where they did their internship at Unity Church Unitarian, the same well-renowned congregation where I would later come to serve a couple years later. In the last section of Linda Susan's writing this morning, she offers this invitation. Come now, all who long for the stars, come to the place where that vision of infinity is written upon the people's hearts. Hold it until you've memorized the way. Set your compass to point toward hope and begin your journey home. This journey home is a complicated and winding journey, a perennial journey, one charted by stars and memory, by intuition and a little luck. This journey back home is one we are in the midst of as a congregation. All of us here this fall, we are invited to return, remember, and renew together in community. And just as I mentioned last Sunday, this journey is not instantaneous. It's not quick, but rather fluid and ongoing. And so we would do well to consider the tools available to us as we continue the journey back together. Reverend Ulrich encourages us to hold the way home close to our hearts until it is memorized, imprinted deep within, and then as if by second nature, we will know the next step and the next to continue that journey home. If it was only so easy. If only there were signs, guideposts, reminders that we are indeed on the right path, that we are indeed making the right decisions. Oh, how reassuring that would be. But often I have found this journey home or to and through any new fork in the road is anything but clear. I have also found another truth amidst that often complicated and treacherous journey between point A and point B. And I mentioned it earlier. It is the power that is unleashed through the individual and the collective remembering. I want to be clear, this is different than our memory. Remembering and memory are different things because I have a pretty bad memory. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten into hot water because I asked my wife, hey, have you ever seen that one movie? And she would respond, yes, we saw it together. Oops. And no, memory is one thing, but those memories are experiences in life come and go like the tide or the sun. But remembering is a different thing, at least in my mind. It is about the ability to put two and two together, to take two things and connect the dots, to remember, like this member, or this member, or that member, and that member, bringing them together once more. It is a very profound way, and it's a very essential part of the returning process, the remembering process, and is a part of that lifelong journey we are on together in this community. Yet it is one thing to be good at remembering, to be good at connecting the dots. It is another thing to remember what dots need to be remembered and to be reconnected. What is it that requires mending, reminding, remending, remembering? That is the question we will explore today as we continue this three-part series on return, remember, renew. Today, we remember and become mindful once more of some of the essentials, the basic essentials, that in their very essence are easy to take for granted. And what are those basic essentials that we are to remember? Well, if it was only as simple as remembering our P's and Q's. Manners can be sort of important, especially with a toddler, trust me. But instead, I want us to consider a different letter this morning, and that is to remember our W's. 5 W's to be exact. And for the English teachers in the house, that would be, of course, minding our who, what, when, where, and why. Sometimes, and this has been very true during the pandemic, when we return to our 5 W's, when we remember them, it is easier to find our bearings, set our compass, and carry on in this life, no matter the weather or the terrain. In our remembering, we can become more mindful and courageous for this journey before us. And so this morning, I want to briefly walk through my 5 W's with the hope that it might inspire you to consider yours as individuals and perhaps even ours as a congregation. For each of these 5 W's, I have considered a question that accompanies it. So for example, let's take who. Who? For this one, I asked myself, who am I at my essence? Who am I at my essence? At my essence, at the core of who I am, how would I describe me? And my answer is that who I am at my essence is love, a deep and abiding love, a love that is eternal and intimate, a love that is transforming and healing. At my essence, who I am is one who longs to share that love, to spread that love with others, who may, in my humble opinion, also be born of and into that love. There are other critical parts of my identity, of course. Husband, father, minister, white, heterosexual, male. The list goes on and on. These are a part of who I am, and a part of which defines much of my actions and privileges in life. Yet it is love, a deep, abiding love that rests at the essence of who I am. The second W is what? And for this question, I offer us this accompanying question. To what am I committed? To what am I committed? Remembering our answers to what will get to the heart of our commitments as individuals and as a congregation. To what am I committed? First and foremost, I am committed to my family. I am a family first minister, which is not always the way it goes in this sometimes all-encompassing profession of ministry. My family is who I commit my life to. And then beyond that circle of family is our broader notion of family, as in our human family or our universal family. I'm committed to the family. I am committed to the service of this collective, complex, broken, and beautiful family that we are all a part of. That is the focus of my ministry. That commitment to my family and our wider family leads to my third commitment, which is my commitment to the living tradition of Unitarian Universalism. I feel committed to that tradition and to its future. Beyond who I am or who we are or what I am or what I am committed to or what you are committed to is the remembering of time, or in this case, the question of when. And here's the question I use. What times in my life have been the most transformative? What times in my life, when, have been most transformative? For me, the most transformative, life-changing times of my life were getting married to Hattie when I broke down crying in front of 200 people. That was great, as she walked down the aisle. And when I became ordained and installed as your minister, when I put on this stole, a symbol of the mantle of ministry, for which I now carry along with all ministers who came before me and beside me. And then, of course, I was transformed, changed forever by the birth of Holly. It was indeed a holy day, a special day, a day that transformed me forever. And these are, in short, the most transformative moments of my life. Which brings us to the fourth related but distinct question: where? Where? Or asked differently, what places in my life have been the most transformative? Indeed, Hattie's childhood fellowship, where we got married, that sanctuary where was transformative, where we all gathered at North Christian, nearly 300 of us, all there for that ordination and installation service. The hospital room at CRH, sure, was such a transformative place. But also there are many other times, other places to be named, like my childhood home on 67th Street in Milwaukee, or the congregation I grew up in, where I first learned about love and kindness and service, or the Starbucks on Fullerton Avenue in Chicago, where Hattie and I had our first date in 2009, or the Capital Area Humane Society, where we impulsively but joyfully adopted our first dog, Lincoln, as a puppy just 2 months before we got married. Or Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, where my family attended a UU summer camp each summer, and I experienced the feeling of being unconditionally loved. And I experienced, or all the churches that I have served in, from Chicago to East Lansing to St. Paul, and now here to this sanctuary, to this place here that we have gathered this morning, and of course our home in downtown Columbus, in which we are raising our family and putting down roots and staying put. As you come to answer the first 4 W's, who, what, when, and where, you will arrive at another question. Why? Why? The question of questions. I think of the why question like this. What animates my life? What animates my life? Why am I who I am? Why do I do what I do? Why do I remember what I remember? Why do I go where I go? The why question guides our sense of purpose and motivation for life. And for me, my why is that I am grateful. I'm so grateful, filled with gratitude, filled with thanks for this tender and broken life that I am living in this tender and broken world in which we share. I am filled with gratitude, overflowing gratitude that must not just flow, but must extend as well. It must flow on to others, to you and to you and to many people and to the communities beyond these walls. This gratitude, like water, must find cracks in the pavement, slopes on the hillside, rivulets and creeks, hearts and minds, to live on, to pass on, and to move on forward, forward, forward. The why of gratitude animates my life and perhaps yours too. And from that animation, that activation, that rejuvenation, through our remembering of our 5 W's, remembering, reconnecting ourself to ourself, our community to our community, our family to our family, through that animation, we are prepared as much as we can be in this life to continue on. Remember that this is one of the places where you can remember. You can have space here to remember and to find courage and hope. Many beautiful things have happened in this community, in this building and in previous buildings. Many beautiful things before this pandemic, during the pandemic, and I assure you will continue far beyond this pandemic. Reverend Victoria Safford reminds us some of those transformative recollections that we might stumble upon in our days to come in this sanctuary. She says, here is where I found my voice and chose to be brave. And here is where cruelty taught me something. And here is where I was first astonished by gratuitous, I love that, gratuitous compassion, and knew it was a miracle, the miracle that it was, and the requirement it is. It was a trembling time. And here, much later, is where I returned the blessing clumsily. It wasn't hard, but it was unaccustomed. It cycled round, and as best I could, I sent it back on out, passed the gift along. This circular motion around and around has no apparent end. On this site, I was outraged, and the rage sustains me still. It clarifies my seeing. And here's where something caught me, a warm breeze in late winter, a bird song in late summer. Here is where I was told that something was wrong with my eyes, that I see the world strangely. And here's where I said, yes, I know I walk in beauty. Here is where I began to look with my own eyes and listen with my own ears and sing my own song, shaky as it is. Here is where, if by surgeon's knife my heart was opened up, and here and here and here and here, these are the landmarks of conversion. Remember, friends, that as we return, as we renew our commitments to one another, we must recall those memories that have shaped us into who we are, even as we are ever becoming new. We must, even as we are ever becoming new, ever becoming something more together. May this year before us be one of remembrance, an important ritual for our days, separate and together, so that we find and we come to know our 5 W's. May we hold them close to our chest, share them freely with others, and then continue on, one moment at a time, one moment after another, one day after the next, until we are filled, overfilled, overflowing with gratitude and with love. May it be so, and amen.